Hello and welcome to Bharat Reloaded, the special series commemorating 12 years of the Narendra Modi government. I am Nitin Gokhale and I am joined today in this episode by Mr. Arun Ramchandani, head of Larsen and Toubro Defence, takes care of everything as far as defence manufacturing and products are concerned in the private sector company, Larsen and Toubro, or L&T as it is more popularly known as. Thank you, Arun, for joining us and giving us this time.
Pleasure, Nitin. Very happy to be with you on this occasion.
So, as you know, the government policies on defense have evolved over the last 12 years, and you've been in defense sector for such a long time. How would you describe this evolution of foreign defense policy since, let's say, 2015 or so?
So, I would say this last decade has really seen a large thrust on defense industrial growth. And, the so-called slogan of Make in India to an Atmanirbhar India and, the various connotations of Make in India which have evolved over these 10 years, we've seen a significant shift. Just to be clear that in this decade, the domestic defense production has grown about threefold. And that itself is indicative of how the industrial base has evolved in the country. And it has been, to a great extent, supported by key policy measures. So you had the DAP 2020, which was, which brought in a series of reforms in the defense procurement. And now which is evolving into DAP 2026, which is a more refined version of what we had in 2020. The thrust on indigenization, the sourcing from domestic industry, the drive towards R&D. See, at some point we realized that in defense, Make in India is far beyond the licensed production. It's not about only creating production capacity. It's about creating capability in building defense equipment. And I would say that evolution has taken place. Of course, we have, some journey to cross. We've seen exports grow. 2026, we had about 36,000 or crore worth of defense exports. And all this kind of augurs well for the defense industrial base that is being created in the country.
So, as a private sector company, one of the key areas which the government has tried to do is to also encourage private sector. And if I am not mistaken, the budget mandates a certain percentage to be given to or outsourced to the private defense industry, domestic private defense industry. So how has that policy helped, and how has L&T seen this evolution? How does it benefit the consumer as well as the manufacturer?
So, if you look at it, this year's capital acquisition budget of about 1,85,000 crores has identified about 75% coming from the domestic industry, which really means about 1,40,000 crores. Now, the target is to get about 25% of this from the private sector. It's hovering about 22-23%. But, we are getting there. The private sector share is growing. The days of nominated orders to the defense public sector units are gone, and they are competing on every program. And of course for us it's been good. We've been able to get contracts for the K9 Vajra repeats, for close-in weapon systems for the Air Force, for high-power radars for the Air Force. So all of this has enabled us to build large platforms, to establish ourselves. We are seeing growth in the shipbuilding segment as well. And of course, you would have heard the recent announcement that the AMCA program, the field is now narrowed down to private participants. So I think all this is indicative of the shift. And as a company, we've been able to take advantage of this because we've always believed in that Atmanirbhar adage, and we've kind of built our defense operations around R&D, and that has held us in good stead and enabled us to take advantage of the policy measures which are encouraging development. So the so-called IDDM, or Indian Design, Developed and Manufactured Product, is what is the norm for defense acquisition today. And companies who have invested into development capabilities and manufacturing capabilities as well as design capabilities today are well equipped to take advantage of this IDDM movement, so to say. And I think that would bring out real self-reliance.
True. So when you talk about self-reliance, and you spoke about IDDM, which was introduced way back in 2015-16, which is by indigenously designed, developed and manufactured products platform, or at least give it the first preference. In that respect, how important is the IP factor in the products that you sort of develop for the Indian Armed Forces and later for exports?
So, look, if you have to develop products, you need to develop the IP and the technology for that. Now, no matter what kind of collaboration you do, nobody transfers IP. People may transfer production. They may support you with design. You may get some know-how on design aspects, but IP is the next level of evolution. And I suppose the only way to get IP is to build it, and it is very rare that IP would be transferred or made available. And to that extent, I think there is now strong focus on IP creation. There is a large ecosystem of startups which have emerged, who are today being encouraged. So, the startup journey has a very deep valley of death beyond the initial idea. And it requires encouragement and sustainment to enable them to cross that bridge and to travel across the valley of death, which again, that enablement has been provided by the government in terms of IDEX programs, in terms of contracts to startups. And in the new DAP, there is something called low-cost capital acquisition, which really looks at short-circuiting the entire procurement process and actually trying out, equipment at low scale, but provides a very sharp entry point for new IPs and new products to come in.
So there is obviously clearly policy shift from the earlier thinking. You've also interacted for decades now with users, the armed forces, and their requirements. Now, given the flux that is there in the geopolitical situation, wars can be either short or swift, or they can be long term. What is your experience about the interaction with the users and the demands that they make? Does that help you modify, tweak the kind of products and manufacturing that you do?
So let me talk about, I've been around in the industry for close to 4 decades now. And even let me talk about the user mindset shift from, my perspective and what I have seen over these 4 decades. The user, of course, wants cutting edge equipment. And there is no doubt about it. The user wants reliable equipment. It has to work that one time when they need it. And but what has happened is that today the user realizes that the equipment that I use needs to be developed and built in the country, and they've accepted that. From a time when we kind of felt that you know we were second rung players.
Unwelcome players
Yeah.
in this ecosystem.
Yeah, and our equipment was looked at with a little bit of suspicion and frown. I think that has changed from to something which is the user is encouraging of the developer. They are happy to work with us. They are happy to share their insights into the product. They are happy to enable us to improve it. And I'm seeing that mindset shift. The number of startups who you will find today in commands and in the fields and out there in the front, there are so many outreach events that we have with various commands. And the user is really interacting with the industry, which bodes well. And I think we need to take this to the next level.
Sure. So I think DAP 2026 now is due in any case. You would have had interactions, you would have seen the draft which was uploaded.
Yes.
What have been your suggestions to improve the outcomes further? Earlier it used to be a process-driven complete approach. Now it seems that there is a need or the felt need which has been acknowledged to have an outcome-driven procedure and also faster acquisition. What have been your suggestions on that?
So, all said and done, from an industry perspective, two things are very important: speed of acquisition and consistency of demand and visibility of demand. I think if we are going to have a development-driven industry, then they need to have visibility of the acquisition and the culmination of the process. So lot is being done in terms of speed. They various processes which have been outlined in the DAP have cut short the cycle times. But that said, on the ground, we really have to see how it happens. Oftentimes, the process from an AON to a contract really stretches. And I suppose more than just policy framework, the policy indicates certain timelines. But I think there needs to be more accountability towards those timelines. There needs to be, that this is cut off. If you don't submit your bid by this time,
no extensions,
you're out.
basically.
No extensions, no dragging things. Part of it, I would say, some part of the blame must rest with the industry also. We do end up, asking for extensions and sometimes thwarting processes by objecting to the process going ahead.
Sure.
And I suppose some maturity will evolve. On the government side also, equally, I think more accountability needs to be fixed on timelines. And, all of these AON award, accord to contract award, we need to set strong deadlines and be accountable towards them.
Sure. So you are also concurrently now the president of the small industries, the Society for Indigenous Defence Manufacturers, SIDM. What is the sense or the mood amongst the MSMEs, which are a large number of members, who constitute a large number of members as far as SIDM is concerned? Because defence primes like you or other companies, half a dozen of them, let's say, are well poised, they know the processes and whatever. What is the one weak point that the MSMEs have, and what is the one strong point that the MSMEs have in dealing in defense?
So, traditionally the MSME sector really didn't know how to approach the MOD contracts, etc. And typically they form the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 supply chain into the larger OEMs. A lot of them worked with the DPSUs in the past. Today there is a growing private industrial base which has its own MSME network and structure. For example, a company like ours in defense works with over 1,000 MSMEs.
Okay.
And that's the kind of bandwidth of the supply chain that you need when you are doing defense equipment.
Sure.
Because the equipment is so multidisciplinary that you really need breadth of the supply chain. And I think that's a great advantage for the MSMEs to really address that. The strength of the MSME, if you ask me, is their ability to innovate, to be nimble, to be cost effective. And, we need to leverage that strength. The Indian mind is innovative and always ready to find a solution, and a lot of that rests with the MSME. They work in their niche areas, so they develop niche capabilities, which are very critical for growth of an industrial base. The challenges for the MSME are, working capital and the cost of capital. Some of the ease of doing business, they need support and facilitation, and the government is looking at various schemes to make credit easier available. You have the trade scheme which is coming in, and to help them on the working capital front, which I think is a gap which would need to be built. And of course, the MSMEs also need to realize that they have to become masters of their niche.
Quality matters.
Quality matters. They have to excel in their niche area. And I think with that, we have a wonderful industrial base which will become part of this defense ecosystem.
So in a way, SIDM has helped it,
So
grow and connect the MSMEs with the government and act as a bridge.
So we do a lot of outreach programs with the.
How many members does SIDM
So
have?
we have over 900 members today, and a large number of them are MSMEs. We enable them to understand what it means to work with the defense industry, the requirements, the policies that the industry provides. We are connecting them with agencies like SIDBI, and which helps them on some of their credit schemes. We are looking at how to interconnect MSMEs with the user, be part of various defense exhibitions, so they have connection with the primes. So SIDM plays a facilitator in all this, and I think we've done well. We've got a good MSME membership base, and I think that sector of the industry is growing well.
Is doing well, flourishing well. Looking at L&T itself and the future of warfare, as they say, the war nature, character changing quite rapidly everywhere. So there is a thought in the industry, in the government, elsewhere, and probably in India also it will come, to create champions in different segments, so land, sea, air, and deep tech. Does that help the industry as well as the government to have these champions being supported for particular segments, or you think everyone can do everything?
No, so
as a generic question, not as L&T.
yeah. So In a broad sense, one of the challenges we have with the industry setup today is that it seems to be like a kind of gold rush. Everybody sees defense as an emerging sector, as a sector which will have more spending. But if you look across the world, all countries have specialist companies working in domains. Uh, Look, defense is a monopoly with a single customer, and there is only that much of volumes, and there is cyclicity in the business. So there is need for segment champions, and that needs to be nurtured, because growth in a segment also needs good amount of R&D spending. And if you don't have the comfort of consistent demand, and you have new players coming in every day, there could be a problem of consistency of the industry. So I'm not saying that we don't need competition. Maybe you need two players in each key segment. That should be a good way to go.
That's where I think all other countries do it. The
Most
big
of
countries.
it's like that. Whether it's an aircraft or a submarine
Right.
or a shipyard, there are only in a region just a couple of key players.
Right. So that said, let's look at L&T's own focus. You got strengths in underwater. I mean, you've done submarines. You also done land systems. What is going to be the company's focus going forward, and what do you think private sector, as a larger question, should look at in terms of spending more money on R&D? Will that help?
So, like I said, we've been around long enough, and we've been associated, let's say, on the land side with artillery programs. So we have a product range there, and these products are reliable. They are achieving scale. They are contemporary. We have in the land domain, we are doing good amount of work in the air defense segment. So the close-in weapon systems and the air defense gun systems that we built. We are doing, the launch equipment, launchers. We have a good play there. So we have a good land portfolio. On the marine side, which probably is our biggest portfolio, from submarines to warships, and we have a shipyard where we believe that the defense portfolio for that shipyard will grow over time as the Navy acquisition grows. And today we are seeing that the public sector yards are choked for capacity, and we should be able to stand in and do a significant contribution there. That said, we do see the shifts in warfare towards more electronic driven, and that's where we are investing into radar systems, more R&D into radars, more R&D into autonomous systems. We have a few autonomous aerial systems and underwater systems that we have developed. And of course, if the AMCA program breaks, we are also working with General Atomics on the male UAVs. So I suppose putting all this together, we are a significant platform player. We are plugging in niche technologies that would be relevant for these platforms going forward.
Sure. No, so one final thought and one sentence basically I want. Defense is like a continuously evolving and continuously growing segment as far as India is concerned. So, how hopeful are you of this sector doing well?
I think there is no doubt that this sector will do well. It's visible from the market sentiments. It's visible from the kind of PE that defense companies enjoy today, and it's visible from the thrust that the government is giving to both Atmanirbharta and security, both of which have become very crucial needs in today's geopolitically uncertain world. So I suppose it is a sector which will see significant growth. How the industry matures, evolves, and creates a sustainable base for sustained industrial growth, that phase we have to get into the coasting phase. We are still in the little turbulent takeoff phase, but I suppose the industry will coast.
I'm sure
Going forward.
with kind of experience that all of you have and the companies that we have, the defense sector will certainly do well. So that was Arun Ramchandani of L&T giving us a fascinating overview of the Indian defense sector. Policy which have been enabled by the government, policies that have been promulgated by the government has enabled both private and the public sector to flourish or at least grow in the last decade or so. And that is something very encouraging, and the future looks very bright as far as defense sector is concerned. Thanks for watching. I am Nitin Gokul.